What is up, players? It's Warboss Tay up in this mug. Today I'm going to be showing you how I do a white marble effect with some gold flecks in it. It's perfect for the Emperor's children. In this case, they're shoulder pads, but I love this effect. Now, I had originally done black shoulder pads and they looked good. I thought it looked fine, but I got a comment that I just couldn't get out of my head where the the viewer of my video said, oh, it would look even better with white shoulder pads, and all of the art and everything I saw from different sources said that I should do that. So, okay, I decided to start with Celestra Gray. Now, when you paint over a black surface, like it's already been painted black, what you gotta do is thin coats, multiple thin coats. So I've got my wet palette right next to me, and I've got a larger size brush. If you're interested in the brushes that I use, I'm gonna link them in the description. And this is from that brush set. And I took some Celestra Gray, I thinned it down on my wet palette, and I applied this first coat. Now you can see I'm just going for maximum coverage. I'm not trying to slap heavy layers of paint on. This first layer, I know it's going to be streaky. I know there's going to be some black underneath, but I want to just get as even of a coverage as I can. Now this is after the second coat. You can see that the light is shining on it, and what you want to do before you move on to each next coat is you want to look for that shine to be gone. So just turn it in the light, make sure that shine is gone. That means that the paint is dried and it's ready for your next coat. So here, after 3 coats, I am ready. 3 thin coats of Celestra Gray is enough to make it look really good. So now I'm going to take my palette Witch Flesh, I'm going to thin it down on my wet palette, because what I want to do is I don't want to paint over and cover that Celestra Gray. I want a glaze of this pallid witch flesh. So I'm going to be using my hand as a gauge to see how thin and what the consistency is of this pallid witch flesh. And what I want is to see my skin tone underneath the paint. I don't want it to cover my skin. I don't want it to be thick and to cover and obscure any of the details like the wrinkles and the imperfections in my skin. So once I figure out where that medium is, then I'm going to apply it pretty much like I did before, but very thin. And remember, you get this by using water. You can also use a medium like Lamian medium or any kind of acrylic medium to thin it down, but I found that water is fine. You just want to cover the gray, but it's going to be translucent enough and thin enough that you can see that gray underneath, and there's just the tone of that ivory color on top, and that gives us the perfect base for our marble so that we can start working in those fine dark lines that you're going to see underneath that really characterizes what a good marble surface looks like. So I'm going to cover the entire surface and I'm going to let it sit for a little while. And you can see I'm making some progress on the opposite shoulder pad, just going back and forth and working on some other projects while the paint dries. It's good to keep working. Don't let yourself get stuck and frozen, and otherwise it's going to be harder to pick up the paintbrush again. All right, now that my pallid witch flesh has dried, I'm going to be taking some Eshin Gray and thinning it down on my wet palette. We don't want a thick line of paint. What we want is to see a nice thin feathered line so that we can paint over it and it's not going to create a visible thick line over the pallid witch flesh of the marble. So I'm making a bunch of different thin lines. I'm using a smaller size brush. This is also in the Master Series set, which you can get at my paintbrush link from Golden Maple in the description. If you do decide to get anything, don't forget to use my promo code though, WART. That will give you 10% off at the checkout. Now I'm trying to keep consistent with the direction of these lines, mainly going horizontal, all kind of in the same direction, like it's flowing from one side to the other across all the surfaces. After you're finished with the Eshin Gray lines, we're going to take our Administratum Gray now and we're going to thin it down, and we're going to lightly paint over the Eshin Gray. We're going to cloud up that Eshin Gray so it's not a solid line of paint where it goes from the white marble to the dark line. We want it to blend. We want it to look like the lines are coming up from below rather than being painted on top. And you can tell by doing this just a little bit of practice, and you're going to really understand, okay, this is how thin my administratum gray paint needs to be so that it can cover the line of Eschen gray but not obscure it. We do want to see that shadow, that darker line, but we don't want it to be so obvious and sitting on top of the white marble. Once you've gotten to this point in the painting process, it becomes a matter of glazing over the lines that you just painted using a very thin down glaze application of pallid witch flesh. And then it is up to you, depending on if you want the lines to be darker, if you want some of them to pop out and have a little bit more depth, then you can reapply some Eschen gray or administratum gray to those lines to strengthen them again. And at this point, it's really up to you to determine how many of these veins you want and how dark do you want them to be. The process is just a repeatable one at this point. Add some Eschen gray if you think some new lines should be added, or if you want to darken some of the lines that might have gotten too muddied and clouded with the pallid witch flesh. Then add some administratum gray to soften the break between the Eschen gray dark color and the white color of the marble. And finally glaze everything with the pallid witch flesh glaze, which is again just adding enough water to your pallid witch flesh on your wet palette so that it covers it nicely without painting over the lines. This is one of those techniques which is very simple and easy to learn. The process is basically paint the white, then do the veins, and then glaze with pallid witch flesh over and over and over. The process is very simple. The application and the practice of it is what's going to make it stand out once you're ready for this next step. And this next step is adding a little bit of gold. For the gold on the Dreadnought, I used Necro Gold, but I'm going to be using Elven Gold from Scale Color Metal and Alchemy set. If you don't have access to Elven Gold, then a perfectly suitable alternative is Liberator Gold from the Games Workshop Citadel range. I don't want to go with Retributor Armor, which is a little bit too yellow, and I don't want to go with Balthazar Gold, which is a little bit too reddish. I want this nice, beautiful Liberator Gold. It looks like a beautiful burnished gold, which is going to be perfect for painting in these veins of golden reflective color. Now, how I'm going to be using this is finding the center points or the thickest points of my dark veins and basically painting them inside. This is one of those less is more applications, so choose and pick where you want these golden lines to appear because you don't want it to overwhelm the look of the work that you've already done. Hey, thanks for watching the video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you're not already, and we will see you in the next video.